As you've probably gathered, the theme this morning is wisdom from the story about Solomon. And there's a few pieces of wisdom that I'm slowly picking up over the 5 years now that I've been a pastor. For example, I know I should always make sure I have fire in the pulpit so that I can light the candles if I need to. Another thing I've learned is to discern and decide if it's a hill worth dying on, or in other words, to pick my battles. And I've also learned a couple years ago, following the overnight youth event, weekend long I should say, including Friday night, that I shouldn't preach the following Sunday morning after being gone all weekend with the youth. The lesson I learned this week is not to preach the Sunday following a vacation Bible school when you've been heavily involved in it, as I have been this past week at Piney Grove. This is the other church that I serve over in Middle River. So if I seem a little tired this morning, I apologize in advance. It's because we've had 3 great nights of sharing God's love with the children at Piney Grove and the community. And we'll be celebrating that this morning at their worship service. However, and maybe I'm wrong, but I felt like I needed to preach here this morning. And so part of it, I know, is the text. I've always been drawn to that story of Solomon asking for wisdom. And even the story that follows it in 1 Kings 3, where Solomon uses that wisdom to judge which mother the baby belongs to. It's an interesting story if you want a light bedtime reading. Wisdom was the theme one night at Vacation Bible School as well this past week. And we read about Deborah in the book of Judges. God gave Deborah wisdom to judge God's people, similar to God giving Solomon wisdom to rule his people. The background story is a little different, though, because it doesn't say that Deborah asked for wisdom, just that she used God's wisdom to judge his people and free them from the evil king who ruled at the time. In contrast, Solomon is the king, and he specifically asks for wisdom. Solomon has just been crowned king. He's 20 years old. And this is after his father, King David, dies. And Solomon goes up to the high holy place of Gibeon. And Gibeon's an interesting choice because it is the most famous altar, as we read this morning. But the main high holy place for Israel was Jerusalem, not Gibeon. Jerusalem's where the Ark of the Covenant was. For whatever reason, Solomon goes to Gibeon. And he gives 1,000 burnt offerings to God on the altar. And then God comes to him that night in a dream and says, "Ask whatever you wish, and I'll give it to you." Talk about how you know you're dreaming, right? God's presenting himself almost like a genie in a lamp, except a genie grants you 3 wishes. Can you imagine God saying, "Ask whatever you want, and I'll give it to you"? And then you start to think and wonder, what would you ask for? And if God were to say this to you, what would you ask God to give you? One popular answer, I'm sure, would be to ask for riches and wealth. God, let me win the lottery. Or I'll just take an unlimited supply of money. Because having money makes everything better, right? I can pay off all my bills, move to a nicer neighborhood, buy a newer car, never have to work again. Well, Solomon's king. He knows he's going to have to do some work to stay king and do work as king, ruling his people. He can't forget about his subjects, or he wouldn't be a good king. Asking for riches solves some problems, but not others. So perhaps instead you'd ask God for good health and a long life. Lord, take away all these chronic diseases. Take away the chronic pain. Take away the need for medicine and surgery. Let me be germ-free so I don't even need to get the flu shot each year. Oh, and let me live a long time. At least my life expectancy, maybe longer. 100 sounds good. God, let me live till I'm 100 years old and be in great health the whole time. Well, some people do stay in good health and live well into their 90s. The world's oldest living person whose age can be documented right now is 116. She lives just up from us in New York City. And some of us do have better immune system than others. But to have perfect health, it's a little unrealistic. Even baseball's Iron Man, Cal Ripken Jr., didn't have perfect health during his streak. He kept playing and persevered. He did so through minor injuries and other minor health issues. So Solomon doesn't ask for long life, which would ensure that he'd be king for the better part of a century, since he's starting off at only 20 years old. A third popular answer to God's offer to give you anything you want, might be to ask for all your problems to go away. Victory over your enemies as a king, victory over the turmoil in your life for those of us who aren't kings. And that sounds really nice too, doesn't it? No more drama, no more conflict, no more problems. Just easy peasy life, like when you're on vacation. Except just like perfect health, that's not realistic either. And just like germs, a little conflict is okay and even healthy. Germs and bacteria, to an extent, help improve our immune system. We naturally have bacteria in our bodies. It's normal. And some conflict is also normal. Those rough edges are where we grow and how we learn. No problems would mean no change, and no change would mean we stay stagnant. And eventually things that stay stagnant wither and die. So staying the same isn't an option. It's not how life works. And we learn and we grow through the opportunities that come our way. Opportunities that may often look like problems, at least to start with. In our epistle lesson this morning, Paul encourages us to take advantage of every opportunity. How many of us take advantage of every opportunity that comes our way? A few of us? I know I do. That's why I spent a semester abroad in Spain when I was in college. I didn't plan it. I didn't go to college expecting to, although I was interested in studying abroad. But the college I went to has a campus in Spain, so I spent a semester in Spain. I met other students there who had always wanted to go to Spain, who had dreamed their whole life of it, who had gone just to that college just so that they could study abroad. I was just taking advantage of the opportunity the school gave me. What opportunities have you had, and have you made the most of them? And what opportunities do you have now? There's often some risk involved, like a transatlantic trip where you stay for 4 months, a semester long, without coming home, and you start off only knowing one person. What opportunities do you have now, and what is the risk in taking advantage of them? Paul's advice is to take it. Yet Paul is not one to live recklessly. The first piece of wisdom he offers in today's lesson is to be careful how you live your life, and to live your life wisely, not foolishly. Be careful how you live, not as unwise people, but as wise people. Be careful how you live. Be intentional in how you live. Be purposeful in how you live. Pay attention. Take note. You want to live your life well. And unless you're James Bond, you only get one life. Be careful in how you live. Make the most of what's been given to you. Don't be that servant we talked about other times who buries his talent in the ground, but the ones who take the calculated, careful risks, who invest in what's been given to them, who make the most of it, who turn what they've been given into something beautiful and pleasing to God. Don't bury what he's given you. And don't squander it either. But be careful, be intentional, make the most of what God has given you. Your health, your life, your family, your property, your wealth, your job, the opportunities in front of you. Don't wish them away. Instead, Paul writes, don't be foolish, but try to find out what the Lord wants you to do. Try to understand what God's will is. God, you've given me this inheritance. What would you have me do with it? God, there's this argument going on between two people I love. What would you have me say? God, I've gotten really sick. What is your will in this disease? How will you use it to make me more like you? Respond to events and opportunities wisely, not foolishly. Seek God in all things, and most likely he will show you what to do, whether through a friend's voice, or if you journal, or an answer may come during prayer, or some other nudge. It may just be a pull at your heart, or it could even be an actual physical pain getting your attention, telling you, like God told the prophet Isaiah, this is the way, walk in it. If God were to ask you, what would you like me to give you? Would you really ask for long life or riches or no problems? Or do you know deep down that while some of those things might be nice, it might be a nice change of pace from your current life, what you really need is God's help with what's going on now. What you really need is a sign telling you what you should do. There's a comic strip that runs in southern newspapers called Kudzu. I was looking it up. It's the author's from North Carolina, actually. It's about the Reverend Will B. Dunn and the folks in his town. And this one comic strip that sticks out in my mind. The first panel shows the good Reverend down on his knees praying, God, send me a sign. And in the next panel, he's still down there on his knees, and up has shown this large, flashing neon sign with the word sign on it. God sent a sign. Wasn't a very helpful sign, but God did answer his prayer. I think a little more helpful usually is that small, still voice saying, "This is the way. Walk in it. Here's what you are to do." Just like Deborah and Solomon, we need God's wisdom, not to rule, but to live well. Solomon chose wisely. He asked God for wisdom. He essentially told God, "Look, you made me a king. Now help me be a good king." Sounds like a good prayer for anyone trying to become what God is calling you to become. God made Solomon king, and so Solomon asked God's help to be the best at what God made him. Whatever your calling, whatever your vocation, wherever you feel God leading you or nudging you, you'll need God's help to do it, and to do it well. Because whatever we do for God, and we want to do our best for Him. God goes first, and God gets the best. Putting anything else first before God is idolatry, which means that there's something else more important than God. And we want to do our best for God. In order to do our best, though, we need God's help. We can't be the best we can be on our own. We need help. And that's part of where the community of faith comes in. It's part of why we belong to a church, so we can help each other to be our best, that we can help each other draw closer to God, so that we can share with each other the wisdom we've learned along the way. And it could be, I'm assuming, too much, that you want to live well. Maybe you're okay with just getting by and surviving. I could be wrong. But if you'd really rather thrive than just survive, if you'd really rather learn and grow and not stagnate, wither and die, then we need God and we need each other. Thanks be to God. Amen.